Toralf, God of Fury. 2 red, 2 other, legendary creature god, trampling 5/4. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent. Toralf's Hammer. 1 red, 1 other, legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has 1 red, 1 other, tap, unattach Toralf's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Return Toralf's Hammer to its owner's hand. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 as long as it's legendary, and it has an equip of 1 red and 1 other. So we've seen Thor. I want to talk about Toralf as a commander in EDH today, and I also want to talk about some decks that Toralf might be good in the 99 of, some strategies that are really going to take advantage of Toralf's ability, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. We're going to talk about Toralf and his hammer today. But first, if you would, go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. Let's talk about the God of Thunder. So we've got our Thor analog here, Toralf, God of Fury. We have got trample on our damage spells. So what I want to do with this in EDH is really focus on Toralf's ability and doing as much damage to our opponent's creatures as we possibly can in one big punch so that all of the excess damage rolls over and hits our opponent. There are some key spells and strategies in EDH that we can use to really take advantage of Toralf's ability. We need to talk about Mjolnir first. Toralf's Hammer, 2 mana equipment, legendary artifact. This equipment is okay. As a mythic equipment on its own, it's not really what I'm looking for here. I may be completely undervaluing this equipment, but for me, it just doesn't excite me. We're paying 2 to play it. We're paying 2 to equip it. A legendary creature only, because you have to be worthy, I'm assuming, gets +3/+0, and you can also throw the hammer to come back to our hand, deal 3 damage, and we do then have Toralf in our hand, so we can either choose to replay the hammer, or we can play the God of Fury himself. First, I want to talk about some cards that would be very good in the 99 of Toralf as a commander, and then I want to talk about some commander decks that Toralf could go into that I think could really take advantage of this ability. Let's get into the first group, and that is cards that Toralf really wants in his own commander-led deck. Earthquake. This is exactly what we're going to be going for with the first part of this deck building. We want to be doing damage to creatures and each player, and then any of those creatures that take more than lethal, that damage is going to roll over on top and deal even more to the player. So for instance, if we've got Earthquake for 5, X equals 5, so we're going to pay 6, we're going to play Earthquake, it's going to deal 5 damage to each creature without flying and each player, so our opponent is going to take 5, and then if they've got 2 1/1s on the battlefield, they're going to take an additional 8, because each of them will be dealt 5 damage, 4 will roll over, and will hit our opponent right in the face. If we look at the God of Fury over there, it says whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage. That's really what we're going for here, is spells that deal damage, not combat damage per se. Obviously, we will be attacking, but we want to play spells like Blasphemous Act. With those 1/1s on the battlefield in the last example, our opponents would be taking 12 for each creature they've got that is dealt the 13 damage, but only has 1 toughness. This card just seems so ridiculous and exciting to me. I want to be able to kill my opponent's creatures with cards like Blasphemous Act and Earthquake, and then all of the excess rolls over and hits our opponent. Starstorm is another version of this. I included this one because it's got cycling and it's instant speed. I think that both of those are really good. We can EOT it if we want to, and it hits each creature, not just creatures on the ground or creatures in the air, like sometimes these spells have caveats to do. Plus, if you don't need it, like I said, cycle it away and move on. Starve Extinction, I think, is the coolest card to do this with because it is just 20 straight up, and it also hits planeswalkers. Toralf says whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage. That damage rolls over and smacks your opponent in the face. We can run cards like Chandra's Ignition, 5 mana, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So I look at this at a minimum with Toralf on the battlefield, right? Because we want to be casting these things with Toralf on the battlefield. So at the very least, this is going to be dealing 5 if Toralf is stuck, and all of the damage is going to go to the opponent as well. So first we deal 5 to each creature, all of the excess rolls over, then the 5 is going to go to each opponent as well. We're just going to be blasting off with the God of Thunder, throwing lightning bolts all over the place. Volcanic Vision is a cool way to get cards like Chandra's Ignition back, because we're going to get another 5 damage out of that. 5 and 2 red for a sorcery. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. It deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to each creature your opponents control. Again, anything that's success rolls over. Purphoros' Invention is a 1-hit. It's going to really punch one creature with X damage, that bottom ability, because it deals twice X damage to a creature or planeswalker. Or if you just want an attacker, even though that non-combat damage is not really what we're going for here, in a pinch we can create an X1 with trample, haste, and we can punch through if they don't have a creature on the battlefield to be able to hit with Purphoros' Intervention. Now, Repercussion is an enchantment that I feel like was created back in the day. They were like, one day Toralf, God of Fury, will be bouncing around the EDH sphere, and we need repercussions for that. 2 red, 1 other enchantment. Whenever a creature's dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to that creature's controller. Are we just stacking all of the damage now? Was this enchantment made for Toralf? The answer is yes, and the other answer is also yes. Now, I talked about with Purphoros' Intervention, having no targets to be able to hit with our damage. That really could be a downside of this deck. We're playing Earthquake, we're playing Star of Extinction, we're doing all this to just continuously be wiping the board, but we really need creatures on the battlefield to be taking the damage from these things so that it rolls over with Toralf's ability. Varchild's War Riders seems like a card, again, that was just made for this deck. 1 red, 1 other, trample, rampage 1, none of that matters. Cumulative Upkeep. Put a survivor token into play under target opponent's control. Treat this token as a 1/1 red creature. So with Cumulative Upkeep, if you're not familiar, you put a counter on it at the beginning of your upkeep, then you have to pay the cumulative upkeep cost for every counter that's on it. So we're going to get a 1/1, we're going to get 2 1/1s, then we're going to get 3 1/1s, and we're always going to have targets on the battlefield as long as War Riders is around and creating these 1/1s for our opponents. We're always going to have targets that Toralf can hit with the ability and deal the damage to our opponents. So this isn't only sorceries here. We've got things like creatures that can also be doing non-combat damage. Balefire Dragon, when it ever deals combat damage, then it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. That's not combat damage. Then it rolls over and hits our opponent yet again. If we've got creatures on their side of the battlefield, a bunch of 1/1s, can we give them a bunch of tokens? That's really what we want to be doing. Balefire Dragon's a great addition to this. Skirk Fire Marshal, if you want to put this into a Goblins build, the God of Thunder and his Goblins, that's a pretty cool theme for this deck. 2 red, 3 other for a 2/2 Goblin Lord. Pro red, tap 5 untapped Goblins you control. The Goblin Lord can count as 1. Skirk Fire Marshal deals 10 damage to each creature and each player. Yet again, just like Earthquake, it deals damage to the player, it deals damage to the creatures, and if those creatures don't have the toughness to absorb that 10 damage, it's going to roll over and hit our opponents. So I was talking about giving our opponents tokens. What are some other cards that are going to allow us to do that? Cards like Goblin Spymaster, 1 red, 2 other Goblin Road, first striking 2/1. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player creates a 1/1 red Goblin creature token with creatures you control attack each combat if able. Obviously, we're going to be putting a target on our face if we're giving out Goblin tokens and we're doing all this damage with Toralf, God of Fury. However, having those creatures on the battlefield when we do go to cast one of our big spells like Chandra's Ignition, that's going to benefit us in the long run. We've also got Tempt with Vengeance, 1 red X. Tempting offer, we get to put X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens tokens with haste onto the battlefield. Then each opponent can put X 1/1s. Go ahead, do it. That's fine. You can have 1/1s. We want you to have 1/1s. The God of Thunder blesses everyone with 1/1s. Tempt with Vengeance is definitely a great way to go. We can do this on utility lands, Forbidden Orchard. Whenever we tap it, the opponent gets to create 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. So that's just another residual way to make sure that there are targets for our Earthquakes and for our Perforoses and Interventions to hit when we're casting these things. We've also got Hunted Dragon, 5 cost 6/6 flying haster. Put 3 2/2s under an opponent's control. So that's yet again just 3 more targets to be able to hit with all of these things. Look for strategies like that. Look for stuff that deals a lot of non-combat damage, maybe that you can pump mana into, or like Star of Extinction just hits hard for its mana cost. And look at ways to hand out tokens. Make sure that everybody has always got a bunch of little creatures on the battlefield so that your spells are rolling over and doing a lot of damage to the opponent. That's not all I've got. Real quick, I want to go through 5 commanders that I think Toralf would be excellent in the 99 of, starting with one of Jake's favorite commanders, if not his favorite commander, Karavik the Merciless. For 7 cost, you're going to get a legendary creature that's basically an enchantment, his favorite card type. Y'all, he doesn't like creatures, but he plays a creature that's basically an enchantment, and enchantments are his favorite card type. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, Karavik the Merciless deals damage to target creature or player equal to that spell's converted mana cost. If you're hitting baby creatures, you get to roll over them, you get to kill a creature, and you get to do damage to the opponent at the same time. Karavik loves Toralf in the 99 for sure. Firesong and Sunspeaker is already a card that is built around spells, instants, and sorceries. Both red instants and sorceries have lifelink, and whenever a white instant or sorcery spell causes us to gain life, Firesong and Sunspeaker deal 3 damage. So this is just a synergistic play here, right? They don't directly connect with their abilities, but the synergy is wild. I mean, you play Firesong, Sunspeaker, Toralf's on the battlefield, and you drop Star of Extinction. We got a lot happening all at once, so many triggers. Rin and Seri, I think, really like Toralf in this because of their bottom ability. A red, a green, a white, tap it. They deal the damage to any target equal to the number of dogs we control. We gain life equal to the number of cats we control. So if we deal that damage to a creature, it rolls over, we've got damage trample, and we're rolling with our dog and our cat. Next up, we've got Jawari, the Earth of Flame. Here's a commander you don't know and have never played. 2 red, 3 other for a legendary spirit 3/3. It's got Earthquake built into it. Pay 1 red, pay X, tap it, deals X damage to target creature without flying. So it's like this very pointed, specific Earthquake, but with Channel, we can discard Jawari from our hand if we can somehow, with red, play it, get it back into our hand with some artifacts or something. Pay 3 red, X, discard it, deals X damage to each creature without flying. It's a weird commander, but this is like, the synergy is direct here, and so I wanted to include it. I don't know that I would recommend building a Jawari, the Earth of Flame deck just to put Toralf in the 99 of. I think at that point you're better off having Toralf as your commander, but maybe this card goes in the 99 of Toralf. That's probably a better way to run it. And then Nostro, Voice of the Crags. I really like how it deals X damage to target creature with the tap based on your storm count, and so that's the kind of thing that if you can get that storm count up huge, which there's a lot of infinite combos to get infinite storm count, tap Nostro, Toralf's on the battlefield, you're dealing infinite damage, you're basically acing an opponent. That's my take on Toralf in EDH, so let's close the book. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really excited about this god from Kaldheim. I think that it has the potential to be a really silly, fun deck to play. Let me know down in the comments if you're building Toralf and how you're going to build it. I'm interested in the other strategies that people are taking. I know that I sort of just kind of ignored the hammer completely with this build, so I know that some other people will be able to take advantage of that, and I'd love to hear about it. Other than that, I'm tapped out, and I'll catch you later.